Have been teasing this guy because he always comes with that fire. Last time I talked to him, he was not a member of the married crew yet, and now he is. Chris Biderman, great to see you, man. Great to hear from you, and congrats as well. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been fun. It's actually not all that different, given that we've lived together for a little bit, well before the wedding. But I appreciate the kind words, of course.
So this is what happened. So today is my anniversary. Actually, it's my 3-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Very similar to you. You know, we are college sweethearts. We've been dating for a very, very long time prior to the wedding. But hey, that's California for you. And you know, we're having this conversation, and I made a joke. The problem was I made a joke about contracts and free agency and how if there were, you know, a 3-year deal, right, where you would sign a new deal, hit free agency. This joke was made about a week ago. I completely forgot that in the coming week, my 3-year anniversary was coming up. So, Chris, don't make jokes like that. I know you've only been married for about a month or so. Don't make jokes like that, okay?
I haven't been married as long as you, but I do feel comfortable that I know better than to make a joke like that.
Fair enough. Chris Biderman joins us of the Sacramento Bee. Chris, I've been asking a lot of people this, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts. What have you learned about the Kings watching these NBA playoffs?
Oh, man. I've learned that the way the Kings build their team is not exactly in congruence with how some of the best teams construct themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of focus on defense and rim protection. I was combing through the stats earlier this week. Among centers per 36 minutes, and this doesn't filter out all the centers who have played in the league, but Domantas Sabonis is 100th among NBA centers in block shots per 36 minutes. And that's not to say he's not a good rebounder, but the rim protection element for the Kings is just severely lacking, particularly when you look at the fact that, you know, aside from Keegan Murray, they don't really have any wings capable of playing high-level defense. So I would say, you know, you have in the finals here, you have Mitchell Robinson with the Knicks, or the conference finals, I should say. You have Rudy Gobert, Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, you have a bunch of good rim protectors left in these playoffs, and the Kings don't really have any rim protection, and that's the one thing that stands out to me. The other obvious, have a point guard.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, a point guard would help, and I know that's going to be a priority for them this offseason, but those are rim protection and the lack of a point guard are the two things that I think when you watch the playoffs and think about the Kings, that's what they're lacking.
Talking to Chris Biderman of the Sacramento Bee. Chris, we haven't spoken since a couple different moves with the Kings have been announced. BJ, let's go here. I know where you're at with Scott Perry and where most people are. We've moved past that a little bit. BJ Armstrong, Bobby Jackson, what did you think of those moves? Were you moved at all by those transactions from the Kings?
Was I moved? I wouldn't say I was moved. I think they're adequate, reasonable hires. I think BJ Armstrong, particularly as a former agent, and it's obviously well connected throughout the league, and that's kind of the theme, right? It's the Scott Perry, BJ Armstrong, the connections they have throughout the league, their professionalism, all of those things. Like, you want that in members of your front office. Will it translate to being able to construct a winner? That remains to be seen.
Right.
But I think they're perfectly reasonable moves, and now it's up to them to address the deficiencies in the roster and see if they can get this thing turned around.
You know, I know that you do a lot of traveling for the Kings, so I'll say, Chris, come on, we're going to go eat. And you say, I'm going to go hop into the other team's media session and things like that. So I think you'd have a better barometer than most people would. Vivek Ranadive and ownership, the fact that so many moves have happened, and, you know, we saw the Suns owner pop up when they made moves. We saw the Nuggets owner pop up when they made moves, specifically because of when you go to a game, he's sitting there front and center and you can see him. Do you think it's, I don't know, for lack of a better term, odd that these moves are being made? And these are wins, right? You know, people can go back and forth and say, well, so-and-so only shows up when they're wins. They're nowhere to be found when they're losses. But this is stuff that you would think he should be proud of. Do you find it a bit interesting that we just haven't seen him or heard from him? You saw Joe Lacob met with, what was it, Sam Amick and Anthony Slater right after the game ended, and they got a kind of a 10-minute piece on that. Do you think it's interesting that we haven't really heard from him, but we see him all the time?
Yeah, absolutely. He's the most prominent decision maker in the organization. I think that's pretty clear. And one thing you'll see from, not every team does it, but from the vast majority of teams, is owners will hold court, whether it's in a press conference setting or in a smaller scrum with reporters, just so fans can hear them. And I feel for Kings fans in this way because, and look, some Kings fans don't care if Vivek talks, and that's totally fine. But what I would say to them is, look, like, if there's somebody who's making decisions like firing Mike Brown, like trading De'Aaron Fox for Zach LaVine, and is largely responsible for long playoff droughts and key decisions within the organization, these fans are paying thousands and thousands of their hard-earned dollars on season tickets, on food, on jerseys, on everything else. And the one who is making all of that money and spending it back into the team is not answering any questions at any point about all of these decisions,
Right.
many of which have not led to positive results. So yeah, if I were a fan, I would be a little annoyed, particularly if I was a season ticket holder, pouring so much money into this team for this product that has gone downhill the last couple of years, right? Particularly coming off of being the number 3 seed in 2023. So yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, not every owner wants to talk to the media. Not every owner is built to handle those situations and take those tough questions, and all of that. I fully understand that, but I'm definitely of the mind that if you are willing to make these types of decisions that and take in all of this money that these season ticket holders and these fans are bringing you, you should be able to answer questions and explain your line of thinking, why you make some of the decisions that you make. Easy for me to say.
Or hey, I'm not going to be making these decisions anymore, right? Just something that would give a little bit more clarity. Talking to Chris Biderman of the Sacramento Bee. Chris, I don't know if you saw this, but hey, we're in the summer, man. You know, off season, it came pretty early this go round, and Kyle and I have been having different conversations on what the Kings can do. Okay, fine, they're not blowing it up. Where should they move? Prior to moving De'Aaron Fox, we had a lot of conversations about them following the Denver Nuggets model. You had Jordi Fernandez coming over from Denver, and that all makes sense. So we put it out on social media, and I had a comparison of, you know, Domantas Sabonis, not comparing him to Jokic, but that's who he would be in this model. We had MPJ and Keegan, or Keegan and Aaron Gordon, whatever it is, and people that are just seeing that clip are saying, Alan, come on, man. We know it's summer, but you've lost it. If the Kings aren't going to follow a model and they're not going to blow it up, I just don't really know what we're doing. Do you think it's crazy for me to say that they should still try to follow the Denver Nuggets model, even though they lost in the second round, which is somewhere the Kings haven't been since the Bush administration?
Right. So I would say a couple things. I don't think you're totally off in terms of the Nuggets being a model, because that is a team that's won a championship, and that's ultimately the goal. Where I would push back on the model idea is that Nikola Jokic is such a singular talent, and I understand that Domantas Sabonis is a facilitating center, but that's kind of where I think the comparison ends. Like, the Domantas Sabonis is not a singular talent in the same way Nikola Jokic is, who might be one of the 12 best players of all time, right? Like, Domantas Sabonis, fringe All-NBA guy, fringe All-Star, guy who's going to rebound the hell out of the ball, but not somebody who is going to score or really have the ball in his hands a whole lot, or nearly at the level that Nikola Jokic does late in games or late in the biggest games of the season, like the playoffs. I think, if aside from the rim protection element, my biggest critique of Domantas Sabonis would be he doesn't get his own shot. Like, obviously Nikola Jokic can facilitate, but he can also hit crazy shots. He can hit pirouetting threes. He can go down to the block and go over either shoulder, and score when he needs to. His skill is just really making the best play, whether it's a pass to a teammate or scoring for himself. Domantas Sabonis in big moments just doesn't really look for his own shot. And I know people talk about his improved 3-point shooting this last year. Just about all of his shots felt like they were spot up shots that were uncontested.
They were free throws. You can say they were free throws.
Yeah, more or less.
It
wasn't like Domantas Sabonis is dribbling 4 times and taking a step back fadeaway 3. Like he's got plenty of room to shoot those threes as spot ups mostly. So yeah, I mean, I understand your line of thinking. I just don't know that there's anybody really, and maybe the Keegan Porter Jr. thing, maybe that comparison works, but I don't really know that there are many comparisons to make between what you have on the Nuggets roster and what you have on the Kings roster.
Chris Beerman, one more for you. A lot of people are just assuming that DeMar DeRozan is gone, and I'm kind of following the same idea. Is there any chance that we're missing something and that DeMar says, no, I really like Zach LaVine and I kind of want to run it back? Is there any chance at all? Obviously, there's always a chance, right? But are we maybe underselling the fact that what if DeMar DeRozan doesn't want to leave, or, maybe the trade market, we'll see once this season's over. I'm sure there are calls being made right now under the table, but are we overselling just the fact that, hey, DeMar DeRozan will for sure be gone? Are we overselling that?
Maybe. I will say, and I'm sure I've told you this before, maybe said it elsewhere, but talking to DeMar DeRozan for a story over the wintertime, it was right before they went and played Chicago, his first game back against the Bulls after leaving. And I asked him about why it didn't work in Chicago and with Zach LaVine specifically. And he said, well, we didn't have a point guard because Lonzo Ball got hurt. And that comment really stuck to me, because obviously Zach LaVine comes to the Kings and they're rejoined as teammates, and the Kings still don't have a point guard, right? And then they're ousted in the play-in tournament. So yeah, I think there's a chance. Look, he likes being close to home. Like, coming to California, playing in California was a huge draw for him. Obviously, he's got his family in LA. And he's a super, super family oriented guy. And so I think if the Kings solve their point guard riddle, then yeah, there's a chance that DeMar DeRozan would still want to stick around. I just don't know that the Kings are going to be able to in a way that satisfies him, because I think where he's at his point in his career is he wants to compete for championships, or at least be on a team that looks like it could contend. And as of right now, without a point guard, the Kings don't look like that. And I don't know that getting Dennis Schroeder or Chris Paul at this stage in his career, or somebody like that, is what would change his line of thinking. And so I think that's probably the biggest question for me when it comes to DeRozan. Like, I think he would probably want to leave if the Kings don't get a capable point guard. And so that's where I think that stands.
So you think, and I think one situation we go back and forth with is when we try to place DeMar DeRozan on a team, what team wants to pay 23, 24 million if he's not understanding that he can't do everything that he did on the Kings, because that's not really winning basketball. So that has been what has confused me about his value and his market. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like, if the if the Rockets don't get Giannis or KD, right, they need a late game scorer. They have plenty of defense elsewhere on the court. They have, they have everything else you think you would need to contend. Maybe you plug DeMar DeRozan into the Rockets as a plan B or C if you don't get Giannis or KD. And then that's your late game closer that helps you, get to the next round of the playoffs if you're Houston. Like, I think it's a team like that. I know people talk about the Clippers. I'm just not really sure. You already have 2 ball dominant players with the Clippers.
Right.
I mean, people always talk about the Lakers. I don't know really how that fits unless they get rid of Austin Reeves, maybe. But I think, a team like Houston, and maybe there's some others that aren't coming to mind right now, but a team like Houston that can contend and needs some late game scoring, maybe that would make sense for DeMar DeRozan.
Chris Biderman, Sacramento Bee. Go check out all of his work at the Sacramento Bee. Also follow him on social media. He is great on X. A lot of information. Chris, every time we come on, you just raise the bar. And that's why I appreciate you, okay? Look, when we go out there, wherever we're going, on the links, because I know you're a good golfer. We've been trying to get out there, but everybody else in the media, they're too cool for school. First round's on me. How about that, to celebrate celebrate your marriage. Celebrate your marriage.
All right.
And, we'll talk in 3 years. Just don't mention free agency.
All right. I'll start looking at tee times at Pebble Beach.
Okay.
We'll get that going.
Let's get it done. I'll see you on the par 3. Chris Biderman of the Sacramento Bee. Chris, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
The Rockets.